So, hello and welcome to an episode of Flying High with Flutter. I'm your host, Alan Wyma. Today I have Haidar Mehsen.
Mahsen,
I'm so
Mahsen,
bad at
yes.
this.
It's
We,
okay.
we practiced a bit before the show, but I said it. I'm sure I messed it up. Um, yeah, he is the creator of an interesting package called ImageMagick, and actually, it's been divided up into 4 packages now. Why don't we start from a quick intro? So, Haidar, you mind to give a quick introduction about yourself?
Yes, thank you very much, Alan. I'm glad you are having me on your show. My name is Haidar Mehsen. I'm a software engineer from Lebanon. I uh, I was introduced to Flutter about 3 years ago in an internship, and I really liked it a lot since then. And I was developing in it since then. My last project, open source project, was this ImageMagick FFI plugin. It is a project of porting the famous ImageMagick C library into Flutter. It took me several months to do it, and I'm happy I finally released it about 2 weeks ago.
Now, what made you want to take on this endeavor, right?
Its idea came to me because I was developing an image editor using Flutter, and I saw that Flutter on pub.dev really doesn't have a fast image processing library. There is an image package on pub.dev, but it's written in a pure Dart, so it's not that fast. Even they put it on their README page. So I thought, why don't I bring some fast library to Flutter? And I saw ImageMagick and said, okay, let's do it.
What's actually the name of that package you're talking about? Is this called Image or the one you said is written in Dart?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it's called just image, if I remember correctly. And last time I read its README page, they wrote that it will not be that fast because it's written in pure Dart.
So, did you actually try to use the package before you created the image magic?
Yes, I already implemented my image editor application using that package, but resizing images, saving images, they took quite a lot of time with respect to a simple application. So that's why I decided to go to the native side and port it to Flutter because usually things written in pure C, which is a native language for some machines, they will be much faster than Dart because of a lot of factors like there you can have more control over the data you're processing. For example, you don't have to copy an array between different processes. For example, you can use pointers or something like that. So it's definitely faster.
Now, have you done any benchmarking between the two for simple operations?
Yes, the benchmarks were just manual until now, but I'm planning on automating them and putting them on the ImageMagick page so that everyone can compare and pick what suits them the best.
I'm kind of curious about your background, right? What did you do before you were doing Flutter?
Yes, before I did Flutter, I was learning first native Android, Java. I also learned some C in the university. That's where I had my first background to C. But during developing the package, I learned also a lot of C language. So my background, you can say I'm very good at Java actually, and I worked a little bit on back-end side, but my main focus was Flutter on this last 3 years.
That's pretty interesting because C is not an easy language. I mean, you've been writing a lot of Dart and Java, and then you went over to C. I mean, it's a totally different style, right?
Yes, not only the style, even the packaging system is very hard in C. I had very hard time figuring out how the linker works, these linking errors. I don't know if you worked before with C, but it's very hard if you are a newbie to get familiar with them. It took me some time, but now I understood the whole process, and now it's easy. But yeah, at the beginning it was hard. It was not easy. Also, for example, when you're working with the pointers and other stuff, you must be very careful not to leak memory. So this is also something you must take into consideration.
Okay, that's interesting. Um, I mean, like, how do I say this? How did you come to the conclusion that you should use Image Magic out of different other solutions, right? Because I'm sure there must be other similar libraries, right?
Yeah, actually, I remember I compared a lot of libraries. There is ImageMagick. There is also one called the Graphics Magic. There are also libraries written in Java. You can which we can use also. I think the no, I think I don't remember if there is a way to port Java native code to Flutter. Like the FFI package. But it was a suggestion from a fellow on a Discord server. His name was Piero5W11, if I remember correctly. He suggested to me to use ImageMagick when I was asking about a faster library than the image package. And I did some comparisons, as I told you. I saw ImageMagick and the Graphics Magic, and I compared other libraries. And okay, I picked ImageMagick. It was not uh, no, it was not the only package out there, but I picked it.
Yeah, I think ImageMagick is probably the most famous library for manipulating images out there that I can think of. I mean, you probably used ImageMagick before working on this package, no?
Yeah, usually if you download the Ubuntu Linux, it comes downloaded there by default. It also has about 9,000 stars on GitHub, so yeah, it's quite popular.
Now, when you started to work on this, like, what was your first step? Was it looking into how to work with C, or was it looking into how to work with FFI and Dart, or what was your first step when you started this process for this package?
No, actually, I did some steps first, but I failed. Then I took another approach. First, I thought because C++ is you were saying in the beginning that it's interesting how someone who knows Dart and Java can go and work with C, right? First, I didn't go and work with C. I tried to port it from C++ to Dart because it's also written in C. There is also a variant that's written in C++. So I tried porting it to Dart, but it was very hard for me to do that. So I dropped it later because the dependencies were and also the linking was very hard to get right with the FFI. So I then decided to start working with it in C. My first step, of course, was going to the FFI package page, the README page on pub.dev. I read the documentation. I started with a simple Flutter project, not related to ImageMagick at all. I just wrote a simple function. It was called the meaning of life. You know, we programmers like to make jokes. It was called the get meaning of life. It was written in C, just one function, and it returns 42, of course. I tried to port it to Flutter using the FFI package. And when I succeeded, then I started working on porting the ImageMagick to Flutter. So I always start with a simple example before I start the actual project because this will make things easier for me.
When you're picking up working with C, I mean, you're actually doing two things at the same time, right? You're picking up the C language, which you said you had some C++ before, but you're also picking up how to build the project in C, and also how to work with ImageMagick, right? I mean, what was kind of like the first step of that process? Was it first picking up on C, or was it first kind of getting them to understand how to actually build everything locally?
Yes, the first step was linking the ImageMagick libraries together and with my C executable. I first built a simple C program that used the ImageMagick library to do some manipulations in pure C, no Dart involved. This is the first project. I wanted to make sure that I'm installing and setting up ImageMagick correctly, and I'm linking it to it correctly because linking is very important in C. It's not as easy as Dart. It's not as adding a dependency in your pubspec.yaml and running pub.get from the terminal or just clicking that button in Android Studio. It's not that easy in C. In C, there is a file. It's called cmakelists.txt. There are other ways, but I'm using C. I was using the CMake tool to build my project. So the first step was creating a small C application that uses ImageMagick library and linking it correctly using the CMake build tool because we are also going to use this with the Flutter FFI package. We are going to use the CMake a lot to link the ImageMagick libraries when we port it to Flutter. So the first step is to create a simple C program, run it successfully. Then the next step will be connecting this simple C program to a simple Flutter app using FFI. And then, if you want a high-level overview, first step, second step, and the third step is to port the real ImageMagick library to Flutter. So this is like a high overview of the whole process.
Now, which part do you think was the most difficult out of all the parts of making this package?
Yeah, the most difficult part was definitely not on the Dart side. It was first learning up how to set up a C project to work with Dart correctly. And specifically, I mean using CMake and using the C linker correctly. This was the most difficult part for me. The coding was not that difficult.
Now, I mean, once you got everything working, I mean, what was actually the use case, right? You said you're working on this image editing app. Like, what kinds of things were you planning to do with images?
Yes, so my image editing app is not that vast. It does not have that vast range of use cases. It was made to solve a specific problem my mother had in her work. So I wanted to make an app for her, and I decided to use a Flutter. This is regarding the image editing app. Its purpose was to generate images from text files. So let's say you have a text file, for example, it contains names of some students, and you want to generate the same image, but for different student names. So I made a Flutter app to do that instead of you having to every time saving the image and then changing the name and saving the new image and then saving the name. But as I told you, when I used the image library from pub.dev, it was very slow to actually resize the images and save them. So I decided to use ImageMagick, and ImageMagick has a lot of use cases. It's a very large library. It can do a lot of things. It can apply Fourier transform to your image. It can resize your image. It can posterize. It can do a lot of things.
Now that's interesting. So you were making an app for your mother. Oh, you're such a good son to make an app for your mother.
Yeah, yeah. It was a hobby project.
I'm kind of curious, like, what platform is she using? Is this for her phone, or was this for her desktop, or what was it for?
No, I made the app for desktop for Linux and Windows. I already uploaded it on the Snapcraft website, but I didn't upload it to the Windows store because it was too complicated for me. I was already bored from the process.
So you said you were trying to save your mother some time, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's really,
Yeah.
I was saying it's really nice to save people some time by automating their tasks.
Yeah, and if they actually accept it, right? Some people, they don't wanna change their ways. I mean, was your mother like, "Please, I need some free time," or was she a little bit against it and you had to convince her, or what was the process like?
Yeah, yeah, no, she was open-minded about it, but I spent some time with her to learn to teach her about how to use the app. I tried to make it as easy as possible to understand without the needing of watching a YouTube tutorial how to use an image editing application.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's a couple of things involved with that, right? One could be that maybe your app, the UI, UX needs some more work, right? And that's okay. There's nothing to be afraid of. I still make apps that are not the most easy to use. Or it could be, yeah, I mean, some people, they just need some assistance, right? I don't know how much your mom uses the computer and how much of a heavy user she is. Maybe she's a power user. I don't know. I mean, is she a power user, or she's kind of like knows how to use web browser and that's about it?
Yeah, she's the kind that knows how to use a web browser and how to turn on and off a PC. That's just it.
Yeah. You know, maybe you're gonna laugh, right? But I used to do some teaching quite a few years ago to people to how to, introduction to web development. And I'm not even kidding you. I thought this would never happen, but it did. One of my students was so new to computers, she did not even know how to press the power button. Even pressing the power button, she could not do, right? I'm
Yes,
not here to make fun of her. I'm just shocked that pressing the power button is so difficult. I don't know how to explain. It was just like she
I
was lost. I said, just turn on your computer, and she didn't know what to do.
I do understand your frustration. I see some people sometimes because I'm a developer, I know how much time you put into developing a very easy and fluent user interface, which when it will be seen by a user, you expect that the user will understand immediately what he should do. For example, you put a pop-up dialog. It has two options, yes or no. Do you want to save an image? And then someone comes and asks you, what should I press? I mean, come on, it's very obvious. But okay, I understand. Some people don't
Yeah,
work out with technology very much, so it's not easy for them also.
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, actually, I have that now with somebody. They ask questions. Questions are not as difficult as it's not as easy as they used to be. But I also need to kind of step back and think. Okay, I mean, you and I are older, right? But uh, sorry, you and I are not. Sorry, in this case, let's say you and I are younger compared to our parents, right?
Yes, right.
You know, like I know one of my friends. He told me, oh, my mom. You know, she got this email that said that she won $1 million and she needs to send $1,000, and she's so excited. It's like, no, it's a scam. You
Yes.
know, there's no prince in Nigeria who's going to give you $1 million.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you and
right.
I know this because we've been on the computer for longer than they have, right? Or
Yes.
as a proportion to our life.
And also, I want to mention some point that I remembered now from the context of our talking. The importance of documentation when you develop some application or some package that other people are going to use. For example, during the development of this ImageMagick package, I made sure that I document every single function that is public, because the users of the plugin must really know what they should do. For example, because I am porting this library from C to Dart, and as I talked to you earlier, there are some dangers of leaking memory or some hanging pointers that are not freed. I didn't want the Dart users to crash, to have their apps crash because of this plugin. So the so-called dangerous functions were documented. For example, I will give you, I'll give you an example. There are some functions in the plugin that take an argument as a string. So I can't really do any kind of validations on these strings, because I don't know the user of the plugin what he's going to give to this function as a parameter, right? So I just documented that if you give it a wrong string that is not as documented on the ImageMagick C library, your application will crash, because even if you were using the C ImageMagick library and you
Uh
give it
oh.
a
Hopefully
wrong
he's
string,
not
it will
gonna
crash.
hang up.
So these were unavoidable
He's still with
things,
us?
but because I was going to port the whole ImageMagick library, so I included them in the Dart side, but I documented them very well.
Okay. So you're talking about documentation and how you need to make sure that you know that the people who use the library know what kinds of arguments they request. You're talking about a string, right?
Yeah, some functions in the ImageMagick library accept a string as an argument. Because I'm writing this as a public API in Dart, I can't validate what the users of the API will give as a string. So I don't know if they are going to give a wrong string. And the dangerous thing about this is that the underlying C code that will be called from Dart will crash if you send a wrong string. This is how ImageMagick library in C is implemented. I can't do anything about it. So the only thing I could do is to document this method to warn the user to not send wrong strings. As with every object in Dart that keeps an internal state or listeners or something, some of the image magic classes keep footprints on the native side. So I also documented that you must dispose of them when you are finished, or else you will have serious leaking memory problems.
Oh yes, that's interesting. So you just write a lot of documentation warning people when they use this method they have to do something to clean up, right?
Yeah, it's not maybe I made it look like all the methods of the library are like this, but it's actually just two or three methods that accept a string and make ratio up if you send them wrong parameters. But for example, if you instantiate a magic wand, which is the object you use to manipulate images, you must dispose it just like you dispose a text editing controller or other widget that keeps internal state.
Okay. Yeah, I'm aware there's some weirdness to some libraries, right? But now that you mentioned about this kind of stuff, if people were to use your package, do they need to install something in particular to make it work, or because we're already using Flutter, as long as you have the environment ready, it should be able to run without a problem?
Yes. Uh, I made sure to make it very easy for people who
Like, is
use.
there kind of any kind of dependencies people need to install?
Yes, I made sure that the setup was very easy. That's the reason why I split it up to four packages. On Windows, the dependencies will be automatically downloaded using CMake build process. So the user of the package can just put it in pubspec.yaml and it will automatically download the dependencies. On Android also, it will automatically download the dependencies. On Linux, it has not been implemented yet, but I am thinking of making the user install the dependencies himself, because users who use Linux don't like straightforward ways, as you know.
What about Android, iOS, and Mac?
Yes, I'm planning to release the package for them, but I didn't have a Mac until recently, so I couldn't develop applications for iOS and Mac. But now, since I had a Mac, I will try to compile the binaries, and they will be also like Windows and Android. They will be automatically downloaded. So you just have to put the dependency in pubspec.yaml, and you can use the plugin just like any other package from pub.dev.
Well, for Mac, you should definitely look to see if you can get them to have Homebrew installed. I know there's quite some other tools out there that do look to see if you have Homebrew installed, and they'll help to brew install the
Yeah,
packages. Usually that works pretty well. I think nearly everybody has Homebrew installed who's a developer on a Mac.
yeah, I noticed that recently. As I told you, I don't have a lot of experience with developing for Mac and iOS because I just started with them recently. You know, this is sometime uh, a barrier to develop Flutter apps for iOS and Mac if you don't have a Mac.
Yeah, it's quite costly, right? I don't know. How is it very expensive for you too to get a Mac? I know in some countries it's very expensive to buy a Mac.
Yeah, the problem is not in the money. It's not it's expensive. The problem is that I was doing this project while I was still a student at the university. So you know I don't have a source of income. But now I started working, so things are starting to get better, and I'm actively working on the plugin as well.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, so okay, that's good. Um, Now, your full time job you're working now is it also with Flutter, or are you doing something else?
No, actually, it's with the Flutter, and I'm very happy that I found a job with the most framework I like.
Did you show them the package that you're working on?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's been listed on my CV, and it's definitely a great advantage for me as a Flutter developer. I also encourage everyone to contribute to the open source community, even if it was a small project. You can even put it on your CV. You will benefit from it, and you will also benefit others from it. It's and also it's very fun journey.
Yeah, it's very fun, but it wasn't frustrating at all.
In the beginning, it was frustrating to get the C linker work, but after that, it was very fun. To put it on the in other words, the frustrating part was not the Dart side or not the Flutter side. It was on the C side.
Yeah, that's pretty true. I know what you mean. Um, but what I was going to say was, I mean, recently there's been a lot of updates to Flutter itself for getting like the FFI more and more easier to work with, right? Have you found that experience easier or made anything easier for you when you're working on this plugin?
Yeah, actually, it was not that hard working with Dart FFI or getting it to work on the Flutter side. I mean, because the documentation is very good on the Flutter website. There are samples for a lot of use cases, and they are documented. Also, the Reddit community and the Discord server, the Reddit/Discord server, they were very helpful for me right there. So the documentation plus the help of the community made it very easy to use FFI.
That's good to hear. Yeah, and I'm also happy to see that you built it in a federated way, right? You're using a federated style, looks like.
I don't think I don't think I did it in the way you mean it, that federated. I think you mean federated, that each platform will have a separate dependency on pub.dev. Is this what you mean by federated?
Yeah, that's what I understand is that because or sorry, so no, you didn't do it that way, right? Because then you would see the linking together, and you don't have that. Okay, yeah, but you did manage to split everything apart, and you have everything kind of working, right? Sorry, I thought you did it federated way, but you didn't. Because if you did, you'd see a lot more packages, though. But you did say you split up into 4 packages.
Yes. So the first iteration, when I released the first development release, uh, I told you I was downloading the dependencies. For example, if you are on Windows, I don't download the Android dependency. I just download the Windows dependencies of ImageMagick, which are the C files and the header files and the binaries. You know how C works. And if you are on Android, I download other dependencies. So in the first development release of ImageMagick, all of this was happening from the CMake build file. But I wanted to split that up because sometimes you want to download the Q8 variant of ImageMagick, and sometimes you want to download the Q16 variant of ImageMagick. And by Q8 and the Q16, I mean the quantum size. There is something in ImageMagick called the quantum size. It can be 8 or 16 or 32, and the behavior will differ based on those. So, in order to not make the Flutter users do a lot of setup steps, I decided to split it up to 4 packages. Each package is only responsible for one quantum size of ImageMagick, and it downloads the dependencies according to that variant. So this is what I mean. What was the reason for splitting up the package? It was not because of the operating systems or something. It was because of ImageMagick itself.
I see. Okay, I see now. Now, was that very difficult to do?
Actually, no. The Dart code is the same in the 4 packages. The difference is in the CMake files, which download the native code, because each variant will have different native code and different binaries. That's why I wanted to split it up to 4 packages, because in the first release, you had to go, the user of the plugin has to go manually to Gradle if he is on Android, or has to go manually to CMake lists file if he is on Windows, and do some modifications there. This introduces unnecessary complexity on the user. So I abstracted this from him and split it up to 4 packages. So now he just put it in pubspec.yaml and depend on it.
Yeah, I can see the different versions, right? How do I know if I want to use Q8, Q16, HDRI, etc.? How do I know which one I want to use?
Yes, if you are familiar with the ImageMagick, then you will know directly which one to use. If you are not familiar, then you can go to the links I have put on the README page on the pub.dev page of the package. They can tell you the difference between them. For example, a Q8 means quantum depth of 8. Q16 means a quantum depth of 16. When you have higher quantum depth, you can work with more precisely with the image, but this will also have an impact on the processing time. So if you want to make a very high precision image editing application in Flutter, you can use the Q16 ImageMagick package. If you want to make a fast image editing app in Flutter, you can use the Q8. And also, if you include HDRI, also you will get more precision.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, even on ImageMagick website, they don't talk too much about it. You have to really go looking into it, so some more.
Yeah, it's the same with all C libraries. All the C libraries don't have that good documentation.
So this one's saying Q8 uses 8-bit per pixel component, whereas Q16 uses 16 bits per pixel component.
Yes, for example, in when you're
Yeah.
using the Q8 variant, each pixel component can range from 0 to 255, which is 2 exponent 8 minus 1. When you're using the 16-bit variant, you can each pixel, for example, the red pixel or a green pixel or a blue pixel can range from 0 to 2 exponent 16 minus 1, which is quite a lot, a big number. So you can represent more colors.
For your mother's app, which one were you using? I'm guessing you're probably using Q8, right? You're more concerned about the speed.
Yes, of course. I'm using Q8 without HDRI. Yeah, because when you have a long list of text and text names, and you want to generate the same image for each name, but with the name only changed, then you want this process to be fast. Otherwise, you can do it manually. What's the point of the application?
Now, I was curious, did you actually end up finishing the whole editor app yet?
Yes, I finished. If you want, we can call it an early access version of it, which I uploaded to the Snapcraft website, as I told you before. But I'm planning on enhancing it more in the future. Uh, I don't know if you saw it, but it really has a nice UI.
What was your mom's reply? Is she really enjoying the app, or does she have more features for you to develop?
Yeah, actually, she enjoyed it, but she wanted more features to be available in the app. I forgot to make the option of editing the image in portrait or landscape mode, so that was a feedback from her. I will implement it later in the application.
Okay, and it looks like it's uploaded on GitHub. You can actually see the source code and everything.
Yeah, it's open source. It's an open source project.
That's the image editor desktop, right?
Yes, I also included a video at the bottom of the page to show you how it works in action.
Yeah, I was just taking a look at it. Seems pretty easy to do.
Yeah, because as we talked earlier, I wanted it to be straightforward for a user who's not uh, at all into programming, in order to for him to understand it and easily use it without any explanation from another person or from the developer. I even put labels on each icon. If you hover your mouse over it, you can see a label.
Yeah, it looks quite good. I'm quite surprised. It looks very fluid and very quick.
I was also surprised that I was able to build this nice thing with Flutter.
Oh, and you also support multi-language, and it even flips around. So you have because your first language is Arabic, right?
Yes, and she wants to use it in Arabic, so I made it international for users who want to use it across the world in English, and for her she can use it in Arabic. And it got some users on Snapcraft. I could see some people using it from
Yeah.
Germany, Netherlands, USA, Mexico, Canada. Yeah, it was very nice to see people using my application, my first application.
Now for doing the translations, right? Um, I believe you have to use like there is something in Flutter for the translations, if I remember correctly. But I can't remember.
Yes,
It's like ARB files, I believe. You're using that.
yes, that's right. Yes, I was using the official Flutter way to do the things. I didn't want to put unnecessary packages. There is a package, I believe it's called Easy Localization. It makes it, I think, easier to make localizations. But I wanted to not depend on packages as much as I can. So I used the official documentation and the ARB files, as you are saying. So, for example, if you want to uh, put some string called, for example, hello world. You put it in a JSON file. It ends with the underscore en for English .arb, and also you make another JSON file for the other language. and then you do some setup in your Flutter code, and you use a class called app localizations.of context, and you can get the string that you want. It will be automatically mapped into the current locale you are using. I even used the block library to manage the languages, specifically the Qubit class.
What? How many languages do you support? Is it just Arabic uh, and English, or is there more? You said people in Germany are using it, so you must be able to support German, right?
No, I think they were using it in the English language, but it's very easy to support any other language in the app because its code is very cleanly written. So, for example, let's say I know I want to support the German language. I just create another JSON file. I put each string and its translation, and I just add a couple of lines in my Flutter code, and now, congratulations, we have an app that supports German also.
Yeah, I did it a long time ago. I did not enjoy the process of creating multiple languages. It's not necessarily difficult, but the setup is not so straightforward, I think.
Yes, you're very right. Yes, the setup is complex. It's not very straightforward. But once you set it up for one time, next times it will be very easy, and it really makes switching between languages very easy because you just change the locale. If I remember correctly, there is something called the locale that you change it, and everything that uses the context can know the current locale, and it will use the correct string from the correct JSON file. So, but yes, the setup is tedious.
Yeah, and I don't like that they use this ARB. I wish they would use like some standard way, like the typical what do you call that? Like the get text method is kind of more standard rather than what we have now with these ARB files. But I mean, at least we have something. And I do remember that every time that you want to make an update, you have to like run a couple of like build runner commands. I believe there's something like that. It's been a while.
Yes, that's right. Because these ARB files will not be, you cannot use them directly from Dart. There will be some Dart code generated for you when you run that command that you're talking about.
Mm,
But
okay.
after you run it for the first time, I remember I didn't run it again. I just run my application and it would run automatically.
Okay. Yeah, I do remember that every time I had to do it, I had to rerun the file. I think, but this was wow. This was 4 years ago, or maybe more. It's been a while. So it's been
Yeah,
some time since I
that's a
had to do
while.
that. Okay. Yeah, I'm happy you have the app out there, and just like any good app, you have a huge feature list you have to work on. And it's interesting that you made this package because of it, and I'm happy that you contributed it. Um, what's next on the list for adding features to the ImageMagick plugin?
The next feature is adding a support for Linux. This is the highest priority feature. Then adding support to Mac OS and iOS. By doing this, the plugin will be supporting the all five supported platforms by Flutter. I don't know if I can support it on the web. Actually, I didn't look into that or how to do that. I also don't have a lot of web development experience, but that will be also on the features list. Basically, this is it for the ImageMagick plugin because the code has, uh, for now, I don't think it needs any refactoring. I wrote it in a very clean way and object-oriented way so that Flutter users don't have any difficulties using it. And that's it. Supporting the other platforms is the highest priority right now. I wish also from the community to get some contributions, especially for the macOS and the iOS uh, support, because I'm not also that experienced in on these platforms, and it really takes a lot of time for you to learn the build system because every platform has a different build system than the other. For example, on Windows, you have .lib files and .bin files, and you need to use Visual Studio to build the files. For Android, it's a different process. You can use CMake or you can build them from the command line, and it's different for every platform. So it's not easy for one person to develop for the all five platforms.
Looks like we may have lost our guest. And with that, again, I thank you for coming on, Haidar. And I hope that you keep working on this package and you can also get the help that you need. So if you guys are interested to help check out the package, uh, go to pub.dev, look up image_magic, and you'll see the different versions of the app, or sorry, of the package on there. You can choose one of them, either Q8 or Q16. Go to the repository, and then you'll see the single repository where they all are. And then you can feel free to make some issues or even make some pull requests and try to update the plugin. And with that, thank you for joining us. See you again next time.